It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank, and I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When two of boxing's most talked about names, YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul and pound-for-pound star Gervonta Tank Davis, finally square off, legends of the sport are already weighing in. Davis brings knockout power, elite speed, and proven experience at the highest level, while Paul steps in with size, reach, and a reputation for defying expectations. Many believe Tank's precision and movement will carry the night, but others argue Paul's physical advantages and ability to surprise could turn this into one of the year's biggest upsets.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that, of course, he's going to win. And, of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still...
The venue for Jake Paul's showdown with Gervonta Tank Davis has officially shifted. Instead of Atlanta, the fight will now take place on November 14th at the Casia Center in Miami. Paul's promotion company MVP announced the move on social media, writing, "The war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis takes over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city." The bout will stream worldwide on Netflix, drawing massive attention as both a sporting event and a spectacle. Officially billed as an exhibition, the matchup highlights a major size gap. Paul's last fight saw him weighing in around 199 pounds at cruiserweight, while Davis has been competing near 135 pounds. Because of this difference, Davis says WBA lightweight title will not be on the line.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV.
The full details of the fight are still unclear, with no official word yet on the contract weight, number of rounds, or whether it will follow standard professional rules. For that reason, many see the matchup less as a traditional title fight and more as a crossover event designed for entertainment. This has sparked debate among fans and analysts alike, raising questions about fairness, safety, and what it means to the integrity of boxing's long-established weight class system.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terrence Crawford has voiced doubts about the upcoming clash between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis, pointing mainly to the significant size difference. In his view, the matchup feels more like a spectacle than a genuine contest, comparing it to a sparring session package as a fight. While Crawford acknowledges Davis' elite skills and explosive power, he also notes that Paul's much larger frame could change a fight if he lands clean. Still, Crawford remains unconvinced about what will unfold under typical professional standards, stressing that the weight disparity makes it hard to view the matchup as a battle between equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over with.
Shakur Stevenson, still undefeated and one of boxing's brightest talents, sees a Paul versus Davis matchup as an uneven contest, especially given Paul's size advantage. Even so, Stevenson is confident that Gervonta Davis' experience, technical skill, and ring IQ would allow him to control the fight with ease. He expects Davis to lean on movement, precision, and fundamentals rather than raw power, likely boxing his way to a decision rather than chasing a knockout. Stevenson doubts Paul has a refinement to handle Davis' speed or intelligence in the ring, and while he criticizes a fight as more spectacle than sport, calling it a disrespect to boxing, he remains certain that Davis' skill level is far beyond Paul's.
Case here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even the, and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. And he called cap on it. So if you gonna call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier offers a more balanced perspective on the Paul versus Davis matchup. He credits Jake Paul for daring to share the ring with a fighter of Davis' caliber, acknowledging both the risk and potential reward involved. At the same time, he highlights the obvious weight gap, stressing that it makes a contest hard to see as fair within traditional boxing standards. For Cormier, Davis' pedigree, skill, and experience clearly give him the edge, but he also notes what's at stake for both men. A loss could damage Paul's growing credibility, while for Davis, falling to a much bigger opponent could hurt his reputation. Though he stopped short of a bold prediction, Cormier leans toward Davis on pure boxing ability, while admitting Paul's size advantage keeps the outcome unpredictable.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt. I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true.
Teofimo Lopez views a Paul versus Davis showdown less as a fight for titles or legacy, and more as a spectacle designed to entertain and generate profit. He sees no shame in that, pointing out that both men will walk away with major paydays while bringing huge mainstream attention to the sport. While it may lack the prestige of a championship bout, Lopez argues it still holds value by attracting new fans, expanding boxing's reach, and showcasing how big the sport can become when star power, drama, and showmanship takes center stage.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show. A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to critique them.